Hey there, hope you're having a wonderful day. As you can see, it is 12:18 a.m. and we have a clock that shows 12:18. So we are going to be building this clock in JavaScript, and unlike with many tutorials out there, we will not be designing the UI elements in HTML and CSS. Instead, this is done completely in HTML5 canvas. Okay, so this will be a pure JavaScript tutorial. And before we begin, I just want to quickly mention that I'm working on various tutorial projects on my YouTube channel. So you can find many courses, and if you go on my website, kennyupcoding.com, you can also find a list of tutorials. And you can also jump to a tutorial section. So for this clock project, we will place this under the website project. So if you jump over here, you can see we have a few tutorials already on my channel. So we have a tutorial for creating a password generator and a calculator and an interest rate calculator, and we have this clock, and there are many other tutorials that you'll find on this channel, and they mainly focus on games. So I have a lot of video game tutorials written in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So if I scroll up, you can see we have many game projects, including Tic-Tac-Toe, Candy Crush, Blackjack, Snake, 2048, Wordle, Sudoku, Flappy Bird, Pac-Man, Duck Hunt, Doodle Jump, and so on. So if you want to stay up to date, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. And again, you can find the list of tutorials on the channel as well as on kennyupcoding.com. Alright, so let's begin coding. So I've already created 3 files, index.html, clock.css, and clock.js. And for the HTML file, I have a boilerplate set up, and I changed the title to clock. And let's link our style sheet. So link rel is going to be style sheet, and href is going to be clock.css. And in our body, let's also add the script tag. So script source is going to be clock.js, and that's all we need for linking the 2 files. And I'm going to add a canvas. So we're going to be drawing the clock completely in this canvas tag, and I'm going to give this canvas tag an ID called clock. That way we can reference this tag in our CSS and JavaScript files. Alright, so what I can do now is double click on the index.html file. You can see we have nothing visible, but the title says clock. And we have a canvas tag, but it is white by default, so you can't see the canvas tag if the entire page is white. So let's add a bit of CSS. So first, I'm just going to do text align center for the whole body. So this is going to place the canvas onto the center of our page. And I'm going to add some style to the canvas. And if you remember, we've given this canvas tag an ID of clock. So to access that tag with the specific ID, you just need to put the hash symbol and the ID name, so clock. And in this case, all I want to do is make the canvas more visible. So here I'm going to do background color and set it to light gray. Alright, now if I refresh the page, you can see we have our canvas tag over here, and the background color is light gray. So that's all we need for the CSS, and now we can start writing out the JavaScript. So you should already know how a circle works and what is a radius, what is the area of a circle, and so on. So just as a reminder, if you want 360 degrees for the entire circle, that would be equal to 2 pi radians, okay? And if you want half of that, or a semicircle, then that will be 180 degrees, which is equal to pi radians. Alright, so let's start working on the JavaScript. So I want to draw a circle for the clock, and the first thing I need to do is expand the canvas. So here I'm going to set the width of the canvas to be 500 pixels, and the height is just going to be the same as the width, so 500 pixels, and we need a radius. So let radius equal to width divided by 2. So this is going to be 250 pixels, okay? Next, I'm going to create 2 more variables, canvas and context. So the context is basically like a pen or a brush, so it's going to be used for drawing on the canvas. So when our page loads, window.onload, we're going to call a function. And I'm going to assign these variables the values based on what we have on the page. So we need the canvas tag. So canvas is going to be document.getElement by ID, and the ID name is clock. So we're going to get this canvas tag using this ID clock, and here we can do canvas.width is equal to width, and canvas.height is equal to height. So this is going to assign the canvas a width of 500 and a height of 500 pixels. And we need the context. So this is going to be the pen. We're going to use this for drawing. So canvas.getContext. And we're going to pass in 2D. All right, now if I refresh the page, you can see the canvas has gotten bigger and the width is 500 pixels and the height is 500 pixels. All right, so now let's draw a circle to represent the clock. So here I'm going to create a new function called drawClock. And here I'm going to call that function. So when we draw a clock, we have to draw a circle, then we have to draw the numbers, and then we have to draw the hands. So I'm going to break it down into 3 separate functions. So let's call a function called drawFace. So this is going to draw a circle. Let's define that down here. And so how do we draw a circle? Well, we're going to take the context, and first thing we need to do is begin path. So this is going to clear the pen. So whatever we planned on drawing, we're just going to clear everything and prepare the context to draw this new shape. So here I'm going to do context.arc. And we're going to specify an X and Y position for the center of the circle. So I'm going to do 0, 0. And we need to specify a radius. So the radius is going to be width divided by 2. So we have a variable for that. So I'm just going to pass in radius. And then we need to pass in 2 more points. One is the starting point for the angle, and the other one is the ending point for the angle. So we want to start at 0. And to go a full circle, we need to stop at 2 times math.pi. All right, now let's refresh the page. And you can see nothing really happened. We have a circle on our canvas, but we can't see it. And that is because to have a circle, you need to draw a border for the circle. So here I'm going to do context.strokeStyle. So this is going to be the color of the line that we want to draw for the border. And here you can write any colors. So for example, you can do red. And I believe there are about 140 standard colors by name. You can also specify by hex value. So instead of red, you can do hash, let's say 058743, like so. And you can see in Visual Studio Code, we can see this green color. So this is going to change the color of the pen. And now we need to specify how thick we want the border to be. So I'm going to do context.linewidth and set it to radius times 0.1. So 10% of the radius. And then finally, we need to actually draw the line. So I'm going to do context.stroke. So let's refresh the page. And you can see we have a green outline for the circle. Now, why is it drawing over here? You can see it's not a full circle, but instead it's an arc. And the reason has to do with the origin point. So when you're working with the canvas or any graphics library, for the most part, the origin is not at the center. So in school, you learned about the XY coordinate system, and the origin was here in the center. In the case of computer graphics, the origin is at the top left corner. So this is 0, 0. And if the width and height are 500 by 500, if I want to get to this top right corner, then the X position would move over by 500 and the Y position stays at 0. And if I want to go to this bottom corner over here, then the X position stays at 0 and you go down by 500. And over here, the bottom right corner, you would have to go to the right by 500 and bottom by 500. So if you want to go horizontally, to the left, this would be negative X direction. To the right would be positive X direction. And if you want to go vertically, going up would be negative Y and going down would be positive Y. Okay? So what we need to do is change the origin point so that instead of being over here, we would set the origin point over here at the center of our canvas. So to do that, I'm going to do context.translate. So a translation is a change in position. So we need to pass in 2 parameters, X and Y. And how much do we want to translate? We want to translate to the right by half of the width. So it would be width divided by 2, but because radius is already width divided by 2, we can just pass in radius. And what about the height? Well, the height and the width are the same, so we can pass in radius as well. So if the width is equal to the height and the radius is equal to the width divided by 2, we are translating the origin point from here to here. Okay, so width divided by 2 and height divided by 2, which is equal to the radius to the right and radius down. All right, now let's refresh the page. And you can see we have a circle now, and that is because of the translation. So the origin point is no longer here. Instead, it is in the middle. Now we have an issue, and that is the border is going out of bounds of our canvas. So we need to make the radius smaller so that the circle can fit inside the canvas. So over here, I'm going to do radius is equal to radius times 0.9. So we're going to reduce the radius by 10%. So we only want 90%. And now if I refresh the page, you can see the circle fits within the canvas. All right, so we have a circle and I want to change the outline color. So let's make it black. So over here, I'm just going to change this to black. And if I refresh the page, you can see we have a circle with a black outline. Now I want to also fill in the circle. So over here, I'm going to do context.fillStyle, and I'm going to set it to white smoke. So this is pretty much a white color, but there's a little gray added to it. So it's a smoky white color. And to fill the circle, I'm going to do context.fill. All right, now let's refresh the page and you can see we filled the circle up with a white smoke color. And in doing so, part of the circle now covers up the border, okay? All right, so now we have the circle for the clock. The next thing we need to do is draw the numbers. So after drawing the face, I'm going to call another function called drawNumbers. And let's define that down here. So for drawing the number, we need to do context.font. So we need to specify a font. And here I'm going to use the backtick so that I can use string interpolation or injection. And so the font size is going to be 20% of the radius. So this is going to be pixels. And we need to specify a font. So I'm just going to do Times New Roman. Let's also add context.text baseline, and I'm going to set this to middle, and context.textAlign center. So for the text baseline property, if you go on any document website such as Mozilla, you can scroll down over here and essentially setting the text align to center would be something like this. So imagine if you had this invisible line, which you can see if you're writing on paper, such as loose leaf paper. You can place the text in reference to where that line would be. So you can have the line on top, you can have it hanging, you can have it in the middle, which is centered, or you can have it on the bottom, which is how you would normally write on a piece of paper. But in this case, we want to center the numbers. So we're going to specify center so that it is going to be placed in the middle. And one more thing, after calling draw face, we call draw numbers. And the last thing we did in draw face was change the fill style to white smoke. So if I were to draw the numbers now, you wouldn't be able to see the numbers because we are using the same color as the fill background of the circle. So it is always good practice to specify the color before you start drawing. So in this case, I'm going to do context.fillStyle and set it to black. All right, so we need to draw 12 numbers, 1 to 12. So let's use a for loop for that. So for let num is equal to 1, num is less than or equal to 12, num plus plus. I'm going to do context.fill text. So this is going to draw the text, and we're going to draw num, but since num is an integer, I'm going to convert this to a string to be drawn. So num.toString. And we need to specify an X and Y position. So I'm going to just start off by drawing at the origin of the circle. So 0, 0. All right, let's refresh the page. And now you can see we have 12 numbers drawn on top of each other. Now what I want to do is start from the center and just draw around the clock. So before we actually draw the text, let's translate the context. So we're going to shift the origin, so context.translate. So for X, I'm going to make it 0, so it stays the same. And for Y, I'm going to make it negative. So when you make the Y direction negative, you are going up. And if Y is positive, we're going down. So in this case, I'm going to do negative radius times 0.85. So 85% of the radius. And remember, we've already changed the radius to 90% of what it currently was. So we're taking 85% of this 90%. All right, now let's refresh the page. And you can see we've drawn the number 1 over here. But where are the rest of the numbers? So essentially, when we translate it upwards of negative radius times 0.85, we're going like this. And here, we would stop and we would draw the 1. Now, in the next for loop, we do the translation again. So from here, which is the new origin, we go up again by negative radius times 0.85. So you can see the problem here. We're just translating upwards forever. So before we draw, we do a translation to go up and then draw. Now we have to go back down to the origin, basically resetting it for the context so that we can do the same for the rest of the numbers. So here we need to translate back down positive radius times 0.85, okay? So now if I refresh the page, you can see all 12 of the numbers are up here. So this is a good start. We are basically drawing away from the origin and drawing over here. Now from here, I want to angle it so that we're drawing around like so, but it will all be equidistant from the origin. So for that, we need to rotate the context. And basically by rotating at an angle, we can basically think about it as sliding the paper around in a clockwise direction while you draw the numbers out. So we need to get the angle. And this is going to be num times math.pi divided by 6. So if num starts at 1, then the first angle is going to be math.pi divided by 6. And if we draw the next number, which is 2, then we'll have math.pi times 2 over 6. And then 3 over 6, 4 over 6, 5 over 6, 6 over 6, and so on until we get 12 over 6. What is 12 over 6? That is 2. And if you do 12 over 6 times math.pi, you get 2 times math.pi, which is 2 pi radians for a full circle. So we're basically rotating at a rate of 1 over 6 times pi, 12 times until we get a full circle. So before we translate, we're going to rotate. And just like with the translation, every time you do something to the context, you have to undo it for the next number. So over here, I'm going to do context.rotate angle. So we rotate clockwise and we increment it by 1 over 6 pi each time, and we translate from the origin. So it's going to move from the center upwards by radius times 0.85. We're going to draw the number. We're going to undo the translation so it goes back to the origin, and we undo the rotation. And actually, this should be negative because if we rotate positively to the right, we have to undo that by rotating to the left. All right, so if I refresh the page, you can see we have the 12 numbers circling around the clock. And just to make it easier for you to visualize, let's say this is our canvas. This is our piece of paper. And I want to draw the number over here. So first, I'm going to rotate the piece of paper and then translate upwards and then draw the one over here. And then we have to rotate back. So if I rotate back, this is going to become like this, where the 1 is now over here, okay? And then we have to translate back. So now the origin is back over here. So essentially, we did that 12 times and we have the numbers all around the clock. Now I want to change it so that before we draw the text, I want to rotate again so that when I rotate back, this 1 is not going to be drawn like this. Instead, it'll be straight down like so. And we have 2 like so instead of like this, okay? So for that, I'm going to do context.rotate minus angle. And then after we draw, we have to rotate it back. Context.rotate angle. All right, now if I refresh the page, you can see the numbers are now straight. Okay, so we have the numbers. Now the next thing we need to do is draw the hands of the clock. And we have 3 hands for hour, minute, and second. All right, let's scroll back up. And over here, I'm going to add a new function called draw time. And we're going to define that down here. And I'm going to get the time. So we're going to use the date library. So we're going to create a date object. And I can get the hour. So now.getHours. And here I'm going to mod it by 12. Since getHours would give us a 24-hour clock, we're just going to mod it by 12. And let's get the minute. And this is going to be now.getMinutes. And let's also get the second. And I can also add a print statement just to show you what this looks like. So if I do console.log hour, minute, and second, let's refresh the page. And I'm going to right click, inspect, go to the console tab, and you can see we get 0:59:8. Okay, so this matches our time, which is 12:59 and 8 seconds. All right, so we have the time. Now we need to draw the hands. And since there are 3 hands, we need to draw 3 lines for all 3 hands. So it's better to actually create a separate function that handles drawing the hand. So for drawing the hand, we need to specify the angle of the hand and how long we want the hand to be and how wide. So to start drawing the hand, which is going to be a line, I'm going to do context.beginPath. And as I mentioned earlier, this is basically going to clear the pen to create a new path to draw. And I'm going to do context.lineWidth and set it to width. And when we draw the line, if you give a line a width and height, you're basically drawing a rectangle. And I want the edges of the lines to have a circular cap. So basically I want to round out the edges. So I'm going to do context.lineCap and set this to round. So the first thing we need to do is specify the starting point of our hand. So I'm going to do context.moveTo 0, 0. So we're going to start drawing from the center of the canvas, which is at the 0, 0 point, which is the origin point. And here I'm going to do context.rotate by the angle. So just like with the numbers, we're going to rotate the hand by the angle. And I'm going to do context.line2. So this is going to specify where to draw the line. So it's going to be 0 and negative length. So just like when we were drawing the numbers, we move upwards. So this is in the negative y position. We are doing the same over here with the line. So for the line, we do not specify an x position, which is 0. Instead, we just need the y position. Now we need to actually draw the line. So I'm going to do context.stroke. And then afterwards, we have to undo the rotation. So context.rotate negative angle. So this is going to be the function for drawing the hand. So for the seconds, I'm going to calculate the angle. So let second angle, and this is going to be second times math.pi divided by 30. Why do we divide it by 30? Well, second can go up to 60, right? So if you do 60 over 30, you get 2. And what is a full circle? 2 times pi radians. So the angle is going to be the circle divided into 60 parts. So 2 pi divided by 60 gives you pi over 30. Now I'm going to add a color. So context.stroke style. And the second hand is usually red. And now we just need to call the draw hand function. So we're going to pass in the angle. And we need to pass in the length and width. So the length is going to be radius times 75. And the width is going to be radius times 0.01. All right, let's refresh the page. And you can see we have our seconds hand over here. And this is 20 seconds. Now let's add the hand for the minute. So just like with the seconds, we need to calculate the angle for the minute hand. So minute angle is going to be minute times math.pi over 30. So it's the same reasoning. We have 60 minutes within an hour. And unlike the second hand, the minute hand is going to be black. So context.stroke style, black. And I'm going to call draw hand, minute angle. And the minute hand is shorter than the second hand. So I'm going to make it radius times 0.70. And it's going to be wider, so radius times 0.02 for the width. All right, let's refresh the page. And you can see for the minute hand, we have roughly somewhere in between 5 and 10 minutes. So we have 7 or 8 minutes, and the second hand is at somewhere between 50 and 55 seconds. Now let's draw the hour hand. So just like with the second and minute hand, we need to calculate the angle. And this is going to be hour times math.pi divided by 6. So why do we divide by 6? Well, we have 12 hours. So 12 times math.pi divided by 6 gives us 2 pi. So let's do context dot stroke style. This is going to be black. And draw hand, hour angle. And the hand is going to be shorter than the minute hand. So radius times 0.50. And we're going to make the hour hand wider. So we'll do radius times 0.03. All right, let's refresh the page. And you can see we now have the hour hand. So looking at this, the hour is at 1 and the minute is at 9 or 10. So I guess it just changed. So if I refresh the page, you can see the minute is at 10 now. And let's refresh one more time. So it is 1 for the hour, 10 for the minute, and 15 for the seconds. Now, there's one more thing we need to add, and that is the hour hand moves according to the minute hand. So if it were, let's say, 150, for example, this hour hand should be closer to the 2. So over here, if I did hour and set it to 1 and minute and set it to 50, and I refresh the page, you can see we get 150. However, this hour hand should actually be very close to this 2. So over here, I'm going to do hour angle plus equal minute angle divided by 12. So we're just going to add enough to inch it forward to the next number. And since we have 12 numbers, we are dividing the minute angle by 12. So let's refresh the page and you can see this is 150, okay? So this hour hand is not quite exactly at 2. Instead, it is somewhere between 1 and 2. So therefore, this is 1 for the hour and 50 for the minute. So I'm going to remove this. So we basically have all the hands drawn. And now I'm going to draw a dot for the center of the clock. So over here, I'm going to do context dot begin path to clear everything first. And then how do we draw a circle? We just do context dot arc 0, 0 for the center of the circle. And I'm going to make it have a radius of 0.05. And we're going to start at 0 and go around 2 times math.pi. And what color do we want to make the dot? Let's make it black. And let's fill in the circle. So context.fill. All right, now let's refresh the page. And you can see we now have the dot for our clock. And we have the hour hand, minute hand, and second hand. So currently the time is 1:14 a.m. And so the hour is at 1, the minute is at 14, and the seconds is at somewhere between 40 and 45 seconds. So we have the UI for the clock, and now we have one more thing to do, and that is to make the clock update every second. So every second, this second hand should be moving as the time updates. So how do we do that? Well, it's very simple. Let's scroll up, and over here for the draw clock function, basically we are drawing the face, numbers, and then the time. The time is where we actually draw the hands for the current time. So if I want to update the clock with the next second, we have to call this set of functions again. Therefore, I'm going to do set timeout. We're going to call draw clock, and we're going to do so within the next second. So this is 1000 milliseconds, which is equal to 1 second. So we're going to call this function draw clock, draw the face, draw the numbers, draw the current time, and then we're going to set a timeout to recall this function within the next second. So this is a recursive function. All right, so currently the time is 1:16 a.m. So let's refresh the page. And you can see it is 1:16 and the second hand is moving every second. So the draw clock function is being recalled every second. And now let's wait a bit longer to see if the minute hand ticks. Almost there. right? 45. So pay attention to the minute hand. 55. And you can see the minute hand tick, okay? And on my computer, you can see it is now 1:17 a.m. So we have a fully functional clock written in JavaScript using just the canvas tag. Hopefully you found this video helpful, and if you did, make sure you give this video a like. If you have any questions, let me know down below in the comments. And as always, if you want to stay up to date for more JavaScript tutorials like this one, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.